During our absence, a lot of discussion about Vinícius Jr. and his future, as he's only got 1 year left in his contract, yet to sign a new deal. Vinícius is back until how long, though, is the front page of AS. Jules is with us. Jules, is this just your normal standoff and he looking for more money, or could Real Madrid really let him go?
I don't think they can afford to let him go, Dan, but this is normal procedure. He's got 1 year left on his contract. It's actually quite hard to understand and to comprehend how Real Madrid found themselves in this position with arguably the best player they've had in the last 5 years or so, one of the best in the world in this position, certainly, to have given him that power that now he can decide really what happens next, because with 1 year left on his contract at Real Madrid, he's got all the cards in his hands. And for a club like Real Madrid, not just Real Madrid, but we talked about other clubs who were in a similar position with some of their star players, even recently with Liverpool, for example, it's very hard to understand how you can let that happen. However, this is the situation. It's normal for Vini and his people, his agents, to talk to other clubs right now or to see what others could offer, where he might end up if there's no extension to Real Madrid. It's normal for them to still talk to Real Madrid, because I really believe that he wants to stay and Real Madrid wants him to stay as well. And for Real Madrid right now, I really don't think you can afford to let him go. And if there's no agreement found on his extension, then very quickly you have to make a decision. If there's no extension and you believe that he can't leave on a free in 12-month time, obviously, then you'll have to set a price and see what the offers are coming from other clubs in Europe.
To that point, sorry, just one sec, Craig. I didn't know this was going to be our graphic. There's no way that Arsenal could get anywhere near the wages that he'd want, is there, Jules?
I think that's very difficult. Yeah. He's one of the highest paid player in the world. Not just that, but image rights and things like that. Plus, there will be a transfer fee, and there's no way, even with 1 year left on his contract, that Real Madrid don't ask at least 100 million euros. So on top of that, you give him a 5-year deal on probably, Erling Haaland is now the highest paid player in the Premier League, but something very similar, probably very close to 400, slightly maybe more, £400,000 a week on 5 years, plus the transfer fee. This is an enormous investment from Arsenal, and maybe they can do it. Maybe they can find the money. Maybe a couple of more players would go and things like that. But this is a huge investment for them. If he comes to Arsenal, I think it's a game changer. But financially, they will need all the numbers to add up really to attract him to the club.
So is he looking for, I don't know if you know this, Jules, is he looking for something at Real Madrid? Because you're right, he is holding all the cards in terms of, ever since the Bosman ruling goes into the last year, then as long as you're a player that is something that almost everybody would take at a reasonable price, then you are the chief man in the poker game. But is he looking for something in terms of the money at Real Madrid that's parity with the likes of Kylian Mbappe, or is he looking to be? What are you laughing at?
Chief man in the poker game.
Well, he's a big chief in the poker game, isn't he? Is he looking for something that's parity with Mbappe, or is he looking to be basically the highest paid player at Real Madrid?
No, I was told that he wants a pay rise. He's already on an enormous amount of money, but that he wants a pay rise that would get him close or on a similar level to what Kylian is earning. And again, I don't think this is unrealistic from his point of view to kind of request that when you see the numbers. And okay, we can look at 25-26 season individually and collectively and say that Vini was not his best and the team was not his best. Sure, but he also won them Champions League before and titles. And usually in this position, you get a pay rise, wherever you are in those big clubs, when you're a player like Vinícius at his age, because let's not forget, he's reaching now his peak years. It's not like if he was 30 already or about to get 30. This is a really good age for Real Madrid to extend him or for somebody else to go and sign him. So I think the money that he's asking is fair.
You're the big poker guy. You're the big chief. When all the people go around your house, those boring people that go around your house for the cucumber sandwiches, and a glass of water. And you have a lovely game of poker.
Is there any world in which we can spin this to say this would actually be good for Real Madrid if he left?
Look, nobody's irreplaceable. Yeah. Nobody is irreplaceable, but you have to replace.
Right.
And I think maybe, and I might be wrong here, I think it seems to me, as well as the money, part of the stumbling block, I think at times, is just persona and attitude.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a risk for other clubs if you end up...
You take it back to the first Clasico, the Xavi Alonso, everything that happened.
Well, it basically became... I mean, I'm sure he wasn't the only one, but he certainly wasn't... I certainly don't think he would be receiving a Christmas card from Xabi Alonso. He was pretty clear that him and his team, and they were publicly quoted on this, were not happy with the amount of minutes that he was getting, and it became a bit of a fight between the two in terms of a power struggle, which ultimately that Alonso lost. As I say, I'm sure he wasn't the only player that wasn't happy. But yeah, no, I could see look, Kylian Mbappe might leave. Erling Haaland comes in, different type of player, but scores goals. There's always somebody that could come in and replace you. I mean, one of the lads, you could probably take at least a couple of the lads from PSG that would come in and be an adequate replacement in the wide positions, be it Doué, Barcola, Elise, Dembele, any of those boys, and there are other, Kvaratskhelia. So no, he's not. And I think the big risk is if he goes somewhere else, which I don't think he will, as Gilles mentioned, the amount of salary, the amount of pay you're going to have to pay him, and then we know if it's not going his way, he can be a problem.
It's the attitude.
It'd be great if he goes to Chelsea, wouldn't it?
Right.
Here you are, Xavi.
I mean, it's just...
See what we got you?
Yeah, we got you a special present.
Apparently he loves your training.
Who do you think would be more upset?
Oh, well, Alonso would be out the door, wouldn't it? He wouldn't last 2 seconds.
I mean, listen, that's... In all honesty, we're pretty much talking about his attitude.
Yeah.
Because if it's Messi at that age, even the argument about, well, the whole dressing room going to want the same amount of money, blah, blah, that doesn't apply really with Messi, because everybody knows it's Messi. But if I'm a player in that Arsenal dressing room, for example, and I've got Vinny Jr coming in, and he's going to be on ridiculously stupid money, and I know he's not going to run for me, I'm going to have a problem with that. And surely, if I'm writing the cheque at Arsenal, I'm asking the manager first and foremost, hold on a second, we've just seen what this guy's done over the last couple of years at Real Madrid, how he's kind of blown everything up, the dressing room, his behaviour on the field has been just atrocious, particularly in the big game with Barcelona. But you're asking me to sign a cheque, and we don't know what we're going to get. I think it completely changes the narrative, and it certainly makes his options are small.
Arsenal have signed players before, after their huge success under Arsene Wenger. Not maybe to this standard, but they signed players once after the 2004-05 season when they last won the title. When they had the drought, they'd gone down a bunch of really talented players who didn't work particularly hard. Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, the list. They signed Pepe. Thought he was going to be brilliant. Yeah. A flash in the pan.
That was Jules' advice. They said to sign.
They did have a lot of players who you would consider extremely talented, but were liabilities when they didn't have the ball. And Mikel Arteta has gone the other way with this Arsenal team. To take them to the Champions League final, to take them to the summit in the Premier League again, is good players who work really good players who work really hard. And that's been the staple for them at Arsenal. That's been where they've had their recent success. Not by thinking, right, you know what, we could just go out and get somebody who's extra special, but it does upset the apple cart, both in terms of salary and potentially in terms of not pulling your weight when you're in a big game. So for those reasons, I wouldn't see him going to Arsenal.
This is Transfer Insiders here on TalkSport with me, Ollie Klink. Very good evening. I'm alongside Joel Bayer. Right, we need to get an update, though. We need to put me out my misery. I need to know what's going on with Bruno Guimarães, because he's been meeting up with all the Newcastle players out in Spain for pre-season, but there is still the potential transfer to Arsenal on the cards. A man in the know, of course, is TalkSport reporter Ben Jacobs, who joins us now. Ben, how you doing?
Good evening, I'm good. You?
I'm nervous, mate, as you can imagine. Come on then, what's the latest with Bruno Guimarães and where all of this is?
Yeah, I mean, you can't be any more nervous than Joel Bayer praying for his Bruno Guimarães, his Vinny Jr. and his Julian Alvarez. Are you even allowed to do a show together, given that it's a Newcastle to Arsenal transfer?
Oh, mate, it's all happening. It's all allowed in my books, mate. I'm all good.
So look, Bruno Guimarães, Newcastle perspective, they've rejected a formal offer below their valuation. Arsenal's perspective, they're finalising this deal. So when we report it, it's naturally quite sensitive. My understanding is that talks are advanced. Optically, from Newcastle's perspective, it's great to have Bruno Guimarães back with them in La Manga in Spain, because this is not an Alexander Isak situation. The player has never refused to train or be there, but he did delay his travel, and one of the reasons why is because, again, this deal is close. Newcastle United fans might not like to hear it, but that's the reality according to our information on TalkSport. And I sense this is going to get done and get agreed relatively quickly now, and Arsenal may have to, of course, make one more formal bid or just finesse the one that's already on the table. There's ways of rejecting a bid out of hand with no encouragement or engagement, or alternatively saying it's not quite there but you're not far off. And according to my information, it's more the latter than the former, and I still fully expect Bruno Guimarães to be an Arsenal player, and sooner rather than later. And I don't think that would be a terrible thing, because within Newcastle, as much as they say they want to keep, there's a price at which they'll sell, and the sooner this gets resolved, the sooner they can spend some of that money, and the sooner Matthias Jasler can understand who's in and who's out. Because the last thing any new manager would want, and the last thing Eddie Howe wanted last summer, is to find that this is a saga that runs all summer. And I still maintain that the Isak situation in part led to Eddie Howe reassessing his position. He was never going to walk last summer, but then when it repeats itself with Anthony Gordon, Sandro Tonali, and now potentially Guimarães, you can understand why Eddie Howe eventually changed his perspective and thought that it was better that somebody else leads the club forwards. And if Jasler begins being asked every single week about Bruno Guimarães, and if he's staying or going all the way until deadline day, and then if he leaves at that point, that's not a great position, and it's not the best possible start, which is why I sense that Newcastle also want quick clarity, and that's why my anticipation is that Arsenal are confident.
Oh, Ben, I brought you on for good news, man. Well, all I've got is Joel just grinning at me. And
yeah, but I mean, I think we said it on a previous show, right? That Newcastle United will never accept they're a selling club. There's a manager that I've watched and known for quite some time that is all in on attacking football, and he's kind of a mixture of Ralf Rangnick and Jurgen Klopp with a little bit of Roberto De Zerbi. He's confident, he's ambitious, and some will say, well, why haven't Newcastle been that active in the market? They have. They signed a goalkeeper this morning. Bamba's a brilliant signing in midfield, and there'll still be more to come, because if you add up Gordon plus Tonali plus this proposed Bruno Guimarães fee, there's plenty of money there for Newcastle to spend even without Champions League football, and even still meaning that they're in a safe financial position. So I would imagine that because Eddie Howe told the hierarchy he was going several weeks ago and then waited for them to find a replacement, that Jasler coming in, it will allow him to have say and spend in conjunction with the leadership and the recruitment team some of this money. So just because Guimarães goes, don't be surprised if Newcastle United offset that with a spending spree of their own and bring in some exciting signings between now and the end of the window.
I mean, first of all, Ben, I want to say you are the man. You can appreciate why I'm very excited to hear from you today, because you've come bearing gifts. When you're talking about Bruno Guimarães, look, I think it's pretty much a done deal. I like the way you said all we have to do is potentially finesse the current bid. What do you think someone like that brings? Is he coming into play as a 6? Is he coming into play as an 8? Is he coming in to stand in or support Declan Rice? Myself and Ollie were talking about it earlier on, but we're not 100% sure. What do you say?
Yeah, I think he's versatile, and that's part of the appeal. Norgard's departed. They need to strengthen in the middle. And I still sense, but it's more a question for Mikel Arteta, that Declan Rice in the last kind of year and a half at West Ham, and even the first 6 to 9 months at Arsenal, was given quite a lot of attacking freedom. And then you start realising that Martin Odegaard comes back. They've got to think about the long-term future of Max Dowman. At the moment, they've still got Ethan Nwaneri. And don't forget, Eberechi Eze was signed as a central attacker in the 10 rather than a left winger. So when you add all of that up, it feels like they need somebody a little bit more disciplined, a little bit more engine room, high energy, can break through the lines, progressive parks with some metronome qualities but from a deeper position. And Rice can do that as well. But if they play together, it's probably Declan Rice pushing a bit further forwards and Bruno Guimarães being an old-school central midfielder that's high energy and can get both back and forwards. And that's a very underrated role because you don't always get the glory. Sometimes you're the pass before the pass that leads to the assist that gets the goal. But of course, at Newcastle, he had output. He had goal contributions. He could burst into the box as well, and he could take free kicks. So it's a nice balance, I think, that Arsenal will have, because there's that depth, there's that ability to play him or Rice, and maybe even a solution where it's him and Rice. And then you'd obviously have to question, is Zubimendi the one that falls out of the side? But I tell you something, Joel, if Arsenal are serious, if Arsenal are going to back themselves up, if Arsenal are going to consolidate whilst the other 5 of the big 6 are in flux and change, even though Spurs and Chelsea are having really promising windows, but if Arsenal are going to play on this stability and back up last season and challenge on all fronts and win more silverware, they're going to need these selection headaches.
It's true.
How high could Newcastle's selling price be for this transfer, Ben? You know, how much money could they demand from Arsenal for Bruno?
Well, I think the general package will be in and around 80 million. Some say it's got to be 85. Others have said 75, but fixed fee and then add-ons on top. And then it would obviously depend on how easy they are. But I think generally Newcastle United are looking for something that starts with an 8 or a package that easily can get them to an 8. There are some reports that say the rejected bid was in and around 75 million, and that tells you that they're already not that far off. And as much as I fully respect all other reporting, and I'm not here to shout down ever any individuals, my information, TalkSport's information, chief football correspondent Alex Crook's information has always been that these intermediaries, these verbal talks, have got the parties to this point. So some are billing it as first contact, first bid, come out the blue, rejected, and now Arsenal have got to come back and Newcastle want to keep. My information's a bit different, that this is basically the 3rd offer but the first formal one, and now Arsenal are really confident of getting this deal done this week.
Okay, moving on. What is the latest with the Vinícius Jr situation then? Have you got more exciting news for Joel, or is it...
Tell me what I want to hear, Ben. Tell me what I want to hear.
For Joel, he's very excited.
See you later, we're out of time, aren't we?
Yeah.
So, Vinny Jr, 2 scenarios, not 3 according to my information. Again, some are billing this as Real Madrid could just keep, and then the player could leave on a free transfer in 2027. Maybe Vinny Jr is willing to do that because then he can take his pick of clubs and come back to Arsenal or Saudi Arabia in a year's time. But Real are putting pressure on sign or we're going to sell you. And from Arsenal's perspective, they're waiting for a counter. So a lot of people ask me, aren't Arsenal just being used as leverage? And isn't this going to end with Vinny Jr signing a new deal? Well, of course, maybe. We can't discount that very strong possibility. But key point is this is not Arsenal waiting for Real Madrid to speak to Vinny Jr about a renewal. They've made their offer. They've pitched almost first. And now with that leverage, the ball is back in Real Madrid's court. And Real want an answer from Vinny Jr also this week. Are you going to extend? If they get it, then Arsenal are going to be left disappointed. But if they don't because they can't agree terms, then Arsenal are going to start formal negotiations with Real Madrid. And that's what I mean about this option of just Real keeping him, doing nothing, trying to get him to extend when the window shuts, and then running the risk of Vinny leaving on a free in summer 2027. None of that is in Real's thinking. And then although it is true Jose Mourinho just wants to keep Vinny at all costs, Florentino Perez is clear. It's either a sale, most likely to Arsenal, or a renewal. And now Real are working this week after, not before, the Arsenal offer to try and get that renewal in place. So it's a bit of a nervous wait for Arsenal, and Vinny Jr is expected to give his final answer at some point this week.
What you know.
Yeah, breaking in the last few minutes, Arsenal's opening bid for Newcastle United's captain and midfielder Bruno Guimarães has been rejected by Newcastle. Now, we've been reporting this morning, we've been waiting for confirmation that club-to-club contact had been made. We now have that. And look, Bruno Guimarães, he arrived in Spain to join his teammates today, to arrive for pre-camp in agreement with Newcastle United to show them that respect, but also have now made their move for the Newcastle United captain. We're just hearing from our colleague Dom Escheth as well to add to this story that Arsenal are now discussing internally whether to go back for a second bid. I would imagine they will, because this is a player they highly admire.
It feels a bit of a formality once that ball gets rolling, doesn't it, Sebastian? What does he give Arsenal next season?
Bruno Guimarães,
Yeah.
I think he brings some sort of aggression in a nice way, in a positive way, that grit, that desire, because you could tell he's a very passionate player, that passion. For me, Arsenal was not being lacking it, and that kind of versatility in the midfield, and he's going to take some pressure away from a Declan Rice that's been having that role of doing a lot of things and sometimes being a little bit lost doing too many things. And I think it's a great addition in terms of just, you know, world-class player, that kind of aura, and I think Arsenal needed that. Just on the back of last season, the titles, yeah.
Yeah, you are both with us because we've just had some big breaking news into us, and that is that Arsenal's opening bid for Bruno Guimarães has been rejected by Newcastle. The Premier League champions are now in direct talks with Newcastle over a deal for their captain. So, Julian, let's get your response to that. We know there was interest, but this is the first concrete interest that we've seen, and that the bid's been rejected.
Yeah, I don't think there's any surprise there, Gail. I mean, like a Premier League sporting director, one of my favourites actually in the league, has always said to me, you never accept the first offer anywhere, unless it's a release clause, and in that case, there's nothing you can do. But you knew that Newcastle would go into these negotiations trying to get as much money as possible for Bruno Guimarães, obviously, and from Arsenal. But we've seen with Arsenal so far this summer that they won't overpay, they won't pay over the odds, or they won't pay over what they believe is the right value for the players, whether that's Bruno Guimarães or Morgan Rogers or anybody else, or Yan Diomande, all those kind of players. So you can understand now that it's a very interesting kind of chess game that is starting between Arsenal and always going to happen around now. It was always going to be rejected, let's be honest. And now the two clubs can discuss it a bit more. I think that Newcastle know how much Bruno Guimarães wants to leave and wants to join Arsenal. I think we know the current situation financially from a Newcastle point of view, and that's one of the reasons why Eddie Howe also left, because he knew that Bruno Guimarães would be sold to Arsenal at some point. It's just that the two clubs have to find the right fee where everybody is happy, and when Bruno Guimarães can seal his deal to Arsenal.
And you've got no doubts it will now go through, and Bruno Guimarães looks set to be an Arsenal player. If they get him, what do they get in him, and how does he fit into this, you know, Premier League champions squad?
I mean, unless Newcastle asks for silly money, but again, that's not in their interest. They need money. The player wants to go, and they want to avoid what we saw with Isak last season, because that didn't bring anything good to anybody. Not Newcastle, not Liverpool, and not Alexander Isak as well. And it'd be silly to do the same again. So I expect this one to go through probably in the next couple of weeks. And then from an Arsenal point of view, in Bruno Guimarães, you not only get one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, but also somebody who has versatility in that midfield three, who can play as a 6, who can play as an 8, who can also play as a 10. We saw him with Seb when he was playing for Lyon, being very comfortable to play as a 10 and dictate the tempo from a deeper position, but also being the last man passing, if you want, from a number 10 position behind a striker. I think he's a wonderful talent on that level. And then he also can press. He is also very press resistant. I think the idea from Mikel Arteta to go and sign him, more than anything else, is how press resistant he is.